My name is Mohammed Wardat, and I will present this collaborative work with Dr. Ridish Rajan and Dr. Wheely. This work is important because it aims to improve the reliability of deep learning applications. Deep learning is being used in many safety critical applications. Thus, testing and verifying systems that use deep learning is becoming important. This is a simple example from Stack Overflow to motivate our work. The developer constructs a sequential model containing two dense layers. When they started training, loss was none and accuracy was very low. This DNN has two bugs. First, categorical cross entropy should be used as a loss function at line 11 instead of mean square error, because it is a classification problem. Second, the user didn't add activation function for the first two layers at line 2 and 4. If the developer uses Keras callback methods, these methods are limited to debugging the DNN model. When using terminate on NaN, the training was terminated after 1.20 seconds. When using early stopping loss, the training was terminated after 12.21 seconds. When using early stopping accuracy, the training was terminated after 34.90 seconds. Unfortunately, such information cannot help the developer localize the faults. Despite the growing number of software debugging techniques, there is no existing technique that detects bugs and fault statements in the structure of deep learning models. Existing software debugging techniques are still not applicable to identify bugs in the DNN models because the traditional software programs and the DNN models have fundamentally different structures. Existing methodology in Keras library doesn't effectively work to identify the bigger model and the root causes, as we have shown in the previous example. To overcome these challenges, this work introduced an approach that detects and localizes faults in the DNN. The closest work to our can be divided into two categories. The first category, an empirical study such as Islam's work, which focused on the symptom and root causes of the bugs for 5 popular deep learning libraries to better understand model bugs. The second category is approaches inspired by software debugging and testing techniques. The work proposed by Ma was inspired by state differential analysis to solve two types of the problems, overfitting and underfitting problems. Another approach by Zhang was trying to adjust early training weights without using additional training data or any artificial parameters. Ma and Zhang approach solve training bugs while our work focus on the structure bugs. To that end, our work makes three contributions. First, we propose the first for localization approach for DNNs, including callback and transition mechanism. Second, we have built a DNN bugs and batch benchmark with the 40 different type of buggy model from Stack Overflow and GitHub. Third, our approach can effectively and efficiently identify 34 out of 40 buggy model and determine the root causes for 21 out of 40 buggy models. Our approach has three parts. First, we prepare the DNN model to collect dynamic traces. We propose two mechanisms. First approach, translate deep learning program into an imperative program. Second approach, use callback mechanism. Both approaches allow the developer to capture and save model variables such as weights and gradient during the training. Second, we record the key value during both feed-forward and backward propagation phases. During the training, an online statistical analysis is performed to compare the program status with the error condition we defined. Finally, we report if the program contains a bug and which layer and phase the bug exists that prevented the learning. Keras provides an abstract class named Callback. The class diagram is showing that Keras Callback has 10 abstract functions. We extend this abstract class to create our callback. We override the method called onTraining batch in to monitor the model during the training. In the imperative approach, Table 1 shows how the developers can translate the Keras code to our DeepLocalize code. For example, on the left-hand side, Keras code at line 5. On the right-hand side, an imperative code, the developers need to determine explicitly the number of the input neurals and the number of output neurals, learning rate, and name of layer. Then add activation function as a new layer at line 6. Our DNN fault localization algorithm serves a three purposes. First, determining whether the DNN contains a bug. Second, reporting the fault location in which layer and which stage. Third, reporting failure information in which iteration the learning is stopped. The algorithm takes the training dataset, the batch size, and the epoch as input. In the feed-forward stage, the algorithm computes the output of the feed-forward layers before and after applying the activation functions. During the feed-forward stage, the algorithm invokes the analysis procedure and passes the output of the layers to check if there is any numerical error. The algorithm computes two metrics, the loss and accuracy, and saves them in each iteration during the training. During the process metric, the algorithm invokes analysis procedure and passes the loss and accuracy value, then check the followings. If there is any numerical error from the loss or accuracy functions. Second, if the loss is not decreasing or accuracy is not increasing for value for a long time. In the backpropagation stage, the algorithm collects the weight and delta weight for each layer in each iteration. The algorithm also invokes the analysis procedure and passes the weight and delta weight for each layer to check if there is any numerical error. Finally, the algorithm prints error message if there is any numerical error and determines which layer causes this issue. Otherwise, the algorithm prints message to indicate that the model is correct. We collected a buggy model from Stack Overflow and GitHub to construct a benchmark. In the Stack Overflow, we used a keywords, error, bugs, and synonym to search for the post. Then we selected the posts that have a score greater than equal 5 and manually removed all the posts that have a partial code and checked if the post provided the training data. Finally, we derived fault location and batch to fix the bug. We obtained 30 executable program. We also mine the GitHub comments to collect a buggy model. We follow the same process in the Stack Overflow. As a result, we randomly select 11 executable programs with a training data set. In our work, we aim to answer the following research questions. Research question 1, can our technique find bugs in deep learning programs effectively? Research question 2, how effectively and how fast can our technique localize the faults compared to existing methodology in Keras library? Research question 3, in which cases our technique fails to detect if a bug exists or not, or fails to detect their locations. We cover research question 1 and research question 2 in this talk. For research question 3, please see our paper. To answer research question 1, we compared our fault localization approach, including callback and transition mechanism, with the 3 Keras method, using a 29 buggy model from Stack Overflow and 11 buggy model from GitHub. The result shows that our callback is able to identify bugs for 34 out of 40 buggy programs, determine 21 out of 40 precisely the layer or the parameter that causes the error. And our tool is able to identify bugs for 23 out of 29 buggy programs, determine 19 out of 29 the layer or the parameter precisely that causes the error. In contrast, the union of the 3 Keras methods are able to identify 32 out of 40 bugs, whereas the 3 Keras method is not able to localize any faults. To answer research question 2, we measured the analysis time for the 3 Keras methods, our tool and our callback method, using Stack Overflow and GitHub benchmarks. Figure shows our tool using dynamic analysis is practical and faster than the Keras by identifying the bug. On the other hand, our callback needs more time to make dynamic analysis for additional parameters than loss and accuracy. This overhead is usually insignificant compared to the amount of the time taken by terminate on none. In conclusion, we proposed an automated approach powered by dynamic and statistical analysis to identify the buggy model and the root causes of the DNN error. More description can be found in our paper. Thanks a lot for attending the presentation.
Hello again. Now it's time for the question of the last paper in this session. The paper is called DeepLocalize for localization for deep neural networks. And here we have one author, it's Mohammad Wardat, and he's going to answer any question you would like to ask. So the first question from Michael is, it sounds like the approach is focused on numerical errors. Do you also support more semantic mistakes, such as combining layers in an ineffective way or poorly chosen hyperparameters?
Can you tell me what's the question again?
Yes, the question is on the chat. If you like to read it, it's on the chat. It's about if your approach is focused on numerical errors, and if do you also support more semantic mistakes, such as, for example, combining layers in an effective way or purely chosen hyperparameters?
Yes, it sounds like the approach is focused on the numerical error, such as NaN. Do you have or support more semantic mistakes, such as combining layer in the effective way, or poorly choosing hyperparameter?
Okay. Another question is from Mikhail. Do you have a chance of validating your tool on the properly working models? And have you seen any false positive results?
We have collecting benchmark from the Stack Overflow and GitHub, and we build the batches for this benchmark, and we use this benchmark to validate the tool, and we don't count any for positive from this tool.
Okay, we have another question from Arias. Stack Overflow codes are usually sample codes and very short. Have you thought about testing the method on more complicated codes?
Okay, first we collect benchmark from the Stack Overflow, but Stack Overflow is the same as it's like small. Then we looking for benchmark from the GitHub, and we have collected 11 large code from the GitHub.
Okay, I have more questions. Can the benchmark be extended collaboratively in the future? I mean, like a Stack Overflow website where anyone can write a question and answer a question. Are you thinking to extend the benchmark in the same protocol?
We are thinking also to extend this benchmark to collect a different type of model with the same way. Like now, the benchmark contain deep, fully connected layers and CNN layer. We are thinking to extend this benchmark to contain RNN model or any different type of machine learning model.
Okay. Another question is if the approach that you have proposed is valid for any machine learning tools, or what are the specific requirements that you need to generalize this approach to any other tool?
Okay, in this approach, we have studied the deep learning algorithm, and the generalized idea to observe the variation and the trend in the model value of the deep neural network may apply to another network. We have not tried that this paper, and it is the subject of the future work. We expect that technique where the weight and the parameter are changing as the training progress could also benefit from our approach.
Okay, thank you. We have another question from Mikhail. What is the overhead of using the tool compared to the training time? You mentioned the overall addition of a couple of minutes for the problematic model that is then stopped early. But how does the training time change if the model works fine?
Mm-hmm.
Do I understand correctly there is no overhead at all?
No, we have proposed two approach. The first one is the callback. The other one is the tool by using imperative code. Over the callback is add overhead when you use this one. In this case, we propose the 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 imperative approach. Both has overhead, but if you training until the end of the model, we collect the time once the model finished. Yeah, I think the analysis is add overhead for the time.
Okay, we have another question from DN. Can you characterize what type of DNN models your approach is working?
Yeah, my approach is focus mainly in the fully connected layer, and the binary classification model and categorized classification model.
Okay, and not working?
It's not working for right now for the RNN model. We are thinking to extend this approach to be working for RNN model in the future work.
Okay, thank you. And my last question is about your future work. Maybe this is part of a PhD thesis with more steps in future. So I'd like to know what are your next steps in this process?
Yeah, we are thinking of first to extend the benchmark to contain different type of model, and we are thinking also to make this approach work for different type of model also. Another work is like making this approach not for localization, identify if there is model, if there is big or not, also provide some suggestion for the user to fix this code as a repairing technique.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Muhammad. There are no more questions in the session, so I think it's time to finish the paper and the session.
Okay.
You'll receive a clap, a virtual clap from all the attendees that are here.
Yes.
You have a very interesting work, and we hope to see you in the next session. Okay.
Okay.
So see you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.